of what users are actually going to end up needing to use the Account Manager API for. And I just wanted to go really quickly through the states of an account in a system, because mostly when we think about a user account as a non-programmer, as a user of a service, we kind of think of this active circle right there. And the active account is really the only one that we sort of consider as being perhaps part of the account database, etc. But I'd like you to sort of consider the notion that even someone who's not logged into the service or not ever signed up to the service might have a status that could be made persistent in the database. So you could imagine someone visiting a site for the first time, a visitor, as already having sort of a very simplified account that you could persist to the database. And other things that you might do is create a cookie that attempts basically to track that user if they come back to the service. So this is sort of the first opportunity to sort of identify a user as being interested in the service. And it allows you to create all sorts of good statistics on people who visit a site once, or maybe people who visit a site multiple times without ever signing in or signing up. And then the next phase is really figuring out how to onboard them into the system. And I basically created two paths here. One for visitors who decide to sign up and fill out account information, and then get that account information verified somehow, and then basically get into the system as an active user. The Facebook Connect path is this sort of external circle. The external accounts are assumed to be verified by the service where you're getting the credentials from, so you don't have to go through an additional verification step. But through these two paths, you basically bring people into the service.
How would you determine that? Would it be that you only accept messages from, let's say, Facebook or something? Because couldn't somebody spam your site by saying that they're from Facebook and giving you a whole bunch of accounts? Or
well, so your goal is to use Facebook's Connect credentials in order to identify someone as being specifically from Facebook. So you can actually gather all sorts of statistics on referrals, which site your visitors are coming from, but you can't really necessarily use them as authoritative. On the other hand, with things like OpenSocial and Facebook Connect, you can get an idea of where else they have accounts in the ecosystem, and you can start kind of collecting that information and using that as a proxy for the verification that you might do to bring someone into the system. And then I've added on an additional loop that takes you from an active state to a deactivated state, and I on purpose didn't create I didn't have a closed or deleted node in here because it's not really in a service like this, not really helpful to consider a person like gone forever from the system. You sort of want to leave a tombstone, and so this deactivated state kind of represents that tombstone at some level, a marker that you had someone who's left the system. And the maybe one main decision that you'd want to make is how long you want to maintain any kind of information about a user in case they want to reuse that ID. And again, that's something that you'd want to probably put inside your terms of service or in some of the pages that describe the way you maintain information for privacy's sake. Cool. So if you don't have any kind of login, basically you might, think of this account states as just consisting of the very first segment. But this is a really good process to understand how users transition through a service. And this is kind of like the minimal graph, I think, that gives you all of the functionality that you need to maintain user accounts. So we've already talked about this in the last slide, but account verification is a way of kind of coming up with a substitute for a strong identity. E-commerce sites will use credit card numbers also for verification purposes and things like that. Or you could use a PayPal account as a proxy as well. So it just depends on how permanent an identity marker you want in order to support your account verification. In the mobile space, SMS is a really convenient way of doing it because people don't switch phone numbers too much, or by and large, the largest number of your end users are not going to switch their numbers as fast. So SMS is great if you can get it. And again, I think services like Facebook and LinkedIn